Frontline Chat with Harry Tanguy and Dave Wardell.
Nice, well prepared. Like to see it
on his cozy blanket. Anything in front of the fire.
I was just saying, David, yours is just so much more homely than mine. Mine's like a freaking look. It looks like, what does mine look? It looks like a probably far right activist's room, which it isn't. Okay, it's thin blue line. Thank you very much. Right. It's got various stolen cats and hats from everywhere. And yours is like were you looking more like Father Christmas every day?
Well,
how are you, everyone? Thank you for coming.
I'm trying. It's a good time of year. It's a good money earner to be Father Christmas.
I've been banned. I'm not allowed to be Father Christmas, but that's another story. Right. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Hello, Jackie.
Mostly the beard is down to the fact I work outside all day long at the moment, and it's so cold that having a freshly shaven face is not very appealing. Well,
does it make a difference?
No, I don't know.
I need to ask some of my female Cornish friends just to see. But I'm Cornish. I can say that. Okay, I can say that. It's fine. It's fine.
Well, thanks to all the Facebook people for joining us, because obviously Harry messed up last week. I mean, he's going to blame StreamYard, but it was Harry, and Harry can't blame me because it's nothing to do with me, because I'm absolutely hopeless with most of life, really.
And as you've seen, so am I. So I don't know what it was. I just reloaded all the links because, yeah, we do in StreamYard and you link in. It said it had linked and it was basically lying to me. Penny, how are you? Have you got a photograph of your sausage dog, Pickles or something? Pickles, you know, yeah. Penny, I apologize, I always forget its name, but I think it's Pickles. Just get it on there with some tinsel. We want to see it, please. Thank you very much.
There you go. Jay gave a very good use for a beard for trapping food for later on.
Does it? So it does make a difference. Sorry, in a cold wind.
Yeah. Plus, I'm lazy. Well, you have to look after it though. That's the thing.
Have you got one of these grooming things now?
I have. Yeah.
Because our guest has a bit of in the beard side of things as well. Well, not full beard, but sure. But he does. He is listening. He does look phenomenally scary as well, because you wouldn't mess with him. you look like Santa Claus.
Yeah, exactly.
And he looks as though he's just going to rip your head off. I mean, that is all I'm saying. This book now available on Amazon, Comfort Zone, Nick Holmes, is phenomenal. I read it last week, and I don't read books fast or anything. I'm not really a book reader, and he's coming on very shortly. He is a phenomenon. If ever you know somebody who is joining the police, even on the direct, I was saying the direct entry, not that he was quite the opposite side of that, but it just shows that dedication, that motivation, and it came from nothing, really.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story.
It will be good. I was just
incredible.
Yeah. I just thought, what a sheltered life I've led.
Yeah. You have had a sheltered life, Harry.
I have. Well, the pace is a bit nicer down here in Devon and Cornwall. I live in Devon and Cornwall at the moment. But, so good. From Florida, I take it that is Sue, is it? Good morning, chaps from...
Oh, I love Florida. It won't be cold in Florida at the moment, I can assure you. Someone else is joining us from County Durham, where they've had no electricity for 7 days.
Blimey! Thank you, Penny, for the update on that one. Oh my God, that's horrible. Yeah,
my friends live near Cape Canaveral in Florida, and it's a balmy 22 degrees at midday. Aren't they lucky?
22. 22 here. 22 degrees for me is the it's a sunny day. 21, it's just not quite there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, 16 is that perfect for me, which is a bit sad, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Very good.
So, just quickly then. So, Finn, I posted earlier. So last Sunday, before last Sunday, he'd been doing quite well. He'd had some physio sessions, and all appeared to be doing really nicely. And then, Sunday, I'm not sure what happened, but it all seemed to go wrong, and he seemed to lose a little bit of mobility, and he was really struggling with getting about.
I didn't know this.
And but he woke up every day like, come on, I can do this, help me out, get out of my way. And he's had a week full of physio and hydro, and it looked like he'd been trying to overcompensate with his front legs, which had made his front shoulders and spine get really tense, which was affecting the back end. So this week they've concentrated on loosening all that up, and he's doing well again. So he's now further than he was before he was bad last weekend. So he's still going in the right direction. But he's had a bit of a week. But like I said in my post, he's my hero. Literally every day he's like, no, I can do this, move out of the way. He's an inspiration in this house anyway. He's an inspiration.
Bless him. Okay. I'm glad it's going right. There is a relevant question, which is a very happy answer, I would have thought here, Dave.
I know it's for service animals and harm to duty, but what's happening about people deliberately harming non-service animals? Can Finn's law be extended? So, I mean, Finn's law sits in the Animal Welfare Act, which is due to some campaigning by us and all our fabulous followers. The sentencing for people who harm animals or neglect or are cruel to them has gone up from a maximum of 6 months to a maximum of 5 years. So you can say it has been extended. I mean, the Animal Welfare Act is an incredible piece of legislation. The difficulty we find sometimes is who's going to prosecute these people. Quite often it's the owners of these animals that do it, and prosecutors rely on neighbours spotting it happening and doing and contacting someone. Now, the RSPCA are normally the people that bring prosecutions in cruelty and neglect cases, but they're a charity, and they're actually, they've said we can't keep doing this. It's a huge amount of money. They basically rely on people pleading guilty in order to get a conviction because they don't have the staff. Bless him. Is after they don't have the staff to do lengthy investigations. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. Something needs to change. But the maximum sentence has gone up. So that's not a quick way to answer your question.
So, well, basically, as far as my view, Finn's Law Part 2 was to answer that, really. That's basically what it's about, because it's not just service animals. So it's any neglect or cruelty. That side of things, isn't it?
So just quickly, just before we move on, so we had a bit of a rebrand. So as you all know, Finn is my hero, and he is my inspiration every day, and inspiration for Finn's Law and about 6 other laws around the world. And so we had a bit of a rebrand because he is my superhero. So this is the new branding for Finn. There we go.
Yay! It's good. I like it.
Arrived today, and there'll be lots of new branded stuff on the website. I'll just show you a coloured T-shirt as well with fabulous Finn. Tia's got her own bit of it as well, so she's going to be involved in the fabulous Finn dog training.
Nice one.
There's all sorts of stuff.
Love it.
Because he is my hero, and we thought that was much more hero-like than the previous branding. So we've had a rebrand.
Angela, good. Best wishes for you, Angela. Hi, both. Please pray for my friend's dog, Storm. German Shepherd, they found a tumour size of 1.5 bags of sugar, and he's doing well in recovery and having spleen removed.
Good. Right, he's in our prayers. Fingers crossed they got it, and it's gone and it's done and sorted.
Yeah, thank you. Well done, Joe.
Don't forget Muddy Wet Spaniel as well. I haven't got one of those to hand, unfortunately, but Muddy Wet Spaniel Christmas cards, you can order them now. We'll get them straight in the post tomorrow, so I'll be with you next week. They're beautiful.
Thank you. And thank you, Sharon. Ordering new book to arrive from Amazon. Can't wait. We need another book, Dave. Yes, Dave. He's so lazy. He doesn't do anything all day.
I
don't know what it is.
There's some things in the pipeline for next year, but it's just trying to find the time for everything. You know, Harry literally carries me, don't you, Harry? It's just
Dude, absolutely not. Well, I just haven't got a job. That's all. So I've got all this spare time in my hands. I don't know where all the spare time goes, but it is a luxury position I've got. I suddenly realised, Dave, it's going to be April. I'll have been retired 2 years.
Wow.
So,
blimey.
And I'm sort of filling it with stuff. I don't know what, but yeah, this is the least I can get done.
You got a long time to carry me, Harry, because I've got 11 years to go.
I mean, mate, not being funny, I don't think you're going to make it.
I had a tough paper round,
You know, I always, you take the mick at me, and I have to take the mick out of you for that.
Yeah.
All right. The fact that you haven't aged a day, but you did look as though you were 55 when you were 21.
24,
is all I'm saying. All right, shall we? Are we done, Dave? Anything else we can do?
Mate, I can't think of anything else. I'll probably get told off by someone later on for not mentioning something I should have mentioned, but no, it's all good.
Julie, thank you so much. Mum has really settled. She's got a nice little routine. Everything's settling a bit with Mum. So thanks for that. People asking about my mum who's got dementia, who really came on aggressively in August, and we had to all hands on deck really win that one. So so that's why I'm still going down to Newquay 5 days a week and back up here for the weekend. So that's it. Right, shall we? Nick Holmes, right. Can't remember. Oh yeah, Nick actually contacted me and he was telling me the story because I think, you know, those jobs, Dave, when somebody says, oh, you know, I spoke to you a few years ago, you know, we just came across each other when we were policing. Yeah. And, you know, you came across, he had a road accident with his Range Rover pulling his Ducati, and we'll talk about his sports bikes in a minute, but how he's got onto that as well. But majority of this is just a story that's phenomenal, that and that's how we sort of connected. And so he sent me his book, and it was I was just gripped to think, similar, Dave, in a way where you started off, really where you could have gone either way, and a really tough start. And so I'm not going to say any more, but
was his paper round as tough as mine? That's what I want to know.
His take, yeah, it was, to me, on mate. He's edging on. Don't know if it was tougher, but it's certainly. Well, but anyway, so I suppose he dealt with his road traffic collision. I sort of remember the Ducati and the Range Rover more than him, in fairness to you. But you won't mind that at all. But you do think, oh no, did have a bad day, it was okay. And let's bring him on. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Nick Holmes. Lovely to see you. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Harry. Hi, Dave. Good to see you.
Yeah, you two look very Christmassy. Harry, you're the only one here not looking Christmassy. Look, I got Christmas trees and baubles, and Nick's got a lovely Christmas tree, and bar humbug there. He's got nothing. He's up the game.
This is that's it, guys. I'm afraid. Basically, that's the effort, but it's all about it. Yeah. Hey, so really, it does start from the beginning. The beginning is Nick. Seriously, the overall thing about this book, and I thoroughly recommend it, called The Comfort Zone, because I've always said, and I probably stole it from somewhere in the past, never sit in the comfortable seat. Because for me, to drive around in nice X5s and shoot guns, there's an awful lot you have to do to get there, and also to stay there. And Dave's the same with you and your dogs, that you want to do, you love doing that work, but you don't just pick up a dog from some stores and then go and do your stuff, do you? So Nick, how did this all start? What was your sort of, your teenage years like? What was your surroundings? Did you expect to join the police then, or what was it?
If I'm honest, and I am always honest, too brutally honest, most people would say that know me, but yeah, I mean, the police was the last job I ever thought I'd end up doing, to be fair. I not a wayward childhood, but I wasn't the best behaved individual, and I did have my moments. You know, not with criminality so much, but motorbikes. I was always in trouble around my bikes when I'm in my early teens. You know, riding on wasteland when I shouldn't have been, things like that. But I had a good upbringing. You know, I don't want anybody to sort of misread into it. I had a great family and all the rest of it up until my late teens. But yeah, I mean, I had no idea what I wanted to do in life, really. I had no clear direction or path. There was nothing that really sort of ignited any kind of interest in me, and I sort of fell into a job because I got kicked out of school. My mum and dad wanted me to go back and do my A levels, and when I turned up to go back and do them, the teachers turned around and said, "What the hell are you doing here? You know, you must be in the wrong place." So I didn't go back and do A levels, but because for one, I really didn't have any interest in it. But my mum and dad wanted me to sort of aspire and be successful, but I just sort of underachieved, and a lot of that at school was around bullying. I was bullied for 3 years in the first 3 years at grammar school until he got expelled. And it was tough, and until you reflect back, you don't sort of realise the consequences of that, because you're dealing with it.
3 years, so 3 years where you basically can't have enjoyed going. And it was grammar school, so you were clearly, you'd done your 11 plus or whatever. And
that's right, 11 plus in those days. And and it was a really good school. It was an all-boys school, very Victorian regime, you know, corporal punishment, so the rule of the day there. And I sort of experienced that on more than one occasion. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was, because of bullying, I just didn't have any focus at all on why I was there and what I was supposed to be achieving at school.
Hard to concentrate, isn't it? When in the back of your mind, you know you're going to come across that bully several times a day. It's hard to actually sit down and concentrate on, you know, what's being put on the blackboard, isn't it? It's, you know, it's really tough. And when you don't enjoy it, it's, you know, I wasn't particularly academic. I did get bullied, and home life wasn't great, and I was just done. I was done with school. I stayed on to A levels, but I shouldn't have done. I should have just gone out to the workplace.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to go to A levels. My teachers didn't try to persuade me otherwise, but instead I did a commerce diploma, which included typing and shorthand, and I was one of 2 boys in a classroom of 18 girls. It was a great year. Thank you very much.
And it was.
So Ruth actually asked, so was there a particular reason why you were bullied? Were you, you know, sort of smaller than everyone else, or is there any particular reason, or was it just your bad luck, really?
I think it was probably because there was sort of a mixed bunch at school. It was a grammar school, but it was obviously open to anyone. And there were 2 or 3 council estates around the sort of school itself. But I didn't come from a council estate. My dad was reasonably well off at this time. He'd just set his own company up, and he'd been a company director before. So we lived in a nice house in a nice place. And I think that caused some resentment, albeit 2 or 3 of my good friends, who were still my good friends, came from that council estate. So, but the one guy who took exception had the support of a lot of older kids who were still at the same school. So there was he had the strength in numbers, and I was always going to lose. It just, as you said, Dave, you know, you weren't focused on the lesson, you were focused on what was going to happen at break time. Yeah. You know, what was going to happen next, and it was incessant, you know, it just relentless. So yeah, it was tough until he got expelled. And I was pretty much bottom of the class, bottom 3 for the first 3 years. The year he got expelled, I came 4th in the class. So I know myself what effect that bullying had. And I think that lives with you throughout your life, is that I
was going to say, Nick, have you always made sure since then, not to right wrongs, but to make sure that you work in as fair a workplace as you possibly can? I know I have.
100%, Dave. 100%.
Right. Yeah. Well, and this is where this is a book on its own, right? But we need to. I'm desperate to move you on, because that's Dave. That's exactly what it is. And I sort of realized I was always stick up for the people getting bullied, which was ridiculous, because I looked more of a child than the one being bullied was, you know. And I'd get myself into a lot of trouble. But it was this sense of justice, this injustice, and it did come through, and it's very clear in Nick's book that that's the case. So you sort of and it was a period of, like, when you were sort of 18 to early 20s, a lot happened, especially with what occupations you're going for. So what happened after you left school then?
So I left school, and my dad, I had to get a job. No clue what I wanted to do at that time. My dad's best friend had an electrical contracting company, so he offered me an apprenticeship as an electrician. I did that. I hated it. Couldn't imagine doing it for the rest of my life. I worked with some really nice people, but they did not enjoy their lives. And I thought, is this it for the rest of my life? You know, opportunities were very limited. It was the same old same every day, and it just didn't fit me. Some people are really happy to do that. Not for me. So I joined up. So Mum and Dad were still together at that particular point in time. My sister got married. And so I actually wanted to be an artificer. I went to join the Royal Navy as an artificer. I wasn't a stupid man. And, the entrance exams for the military are very different to sort of academic.
Because I am stupid, what was that?
Artificer.
What is that?
It's sort of in the middle between the rank and file and an officer.
Oh, okay.
It's sort of almost like, what's the word I'd look for? The technical aspects of the Royal Navy. It would be a technical grounding or background in some particular skill or particular area of the Navy.
Okay.
You don't know until you get in and you go through all the selection stuff, but you have to pass the entrance exam to be considered for that. So I went to Leeds recruiting office, and of course in those days it was the Army, the Navy, the Marines, which is part of the Navy, and the Air Force. And so I went in to join as an artificer and came out as a Marine. I actually went and did the exam, and on the way out I saw one of these posters on the wall, and they had these really cool looking guys with green berets on, and I thought, that looks really cool. And signed up there and then.
But did you get into the Marines? Because that's a tough thing in itself, isn't it? I mean, I'm not saying they're bullies, but it's a tough regime to get going in. Did you actually made it into the Marines?
Yeah. I went to Lympstone for training, and I guess this, Harry, is where the story sort of changes a little bit. In that I'd been there for 4 months, everything was great, and then I found out my father was ill. And he was quite seriously ill, but I thought that's fine. My mother's there, and then I found out she'd left him. So she'd left him the day after I joined the Marines. She packed her bags and went. So I was in a situation where I needed to make sure he was okay. So I asked for permission to sort of go home just for the weekend. I was refused permission to do that. No. So basically, I took umbrage at that, and I said, this isn't the kind of organisation I want to be part of. That has no empathy, no sympathy for somebody's situation. I literally wanted to go home, make sure he was okay, and come back and crack on. But they wouldn't allow me to do it. So there was an exit point about 3 weeks later where you can choose to leave. So I chose to leave. And Harry's read the book. It is probably the only regret I have in my life, but it is a massive regret that I left and didn't finish training.
However,
I love the training. I love the people. The discipline and the things and the skills that I drew from that, stood me in good stead for the rest of my life.
Right.
And there's no doubt the grounding it gives you as an individual is phenomenal.
Because most people who join, and you were like nervous, and I know Lympstone very well. I know the railway line, and you've got people in these baggy suits and other ones dressed up thinking I should have come in a suit, are really horrendously scared. And you actually absorbed the whole thing in very quickly. You were enjoying it, weren't you? Where others were really nervous.
I think, to be honest, everybody's nervous, and I was one of the younger recruits because I had just turned 18, and there were some guys there in the 30s, and certainly more people in the late 20s. So I was quite young, and it is a massive culture shock. In those days, especially, it was brutal, but with purpose. They didn't do anything without a damn good reason for doing it. The discipline, for the first few weeks, you never got to bed before sort of 2, 3 a.m. and then you'd be out again at 6 a.m. It was brutal, but they take everything in incremental steps. They don't just throw you into the fire, and they do. It's like the fitness. I thought I was really fit when I went there, and it was a joke. I was running 3 miles a day thinking I was fit, and then you go into the rings and realize, that's like a jog to the canteen and back.
Dave, you were going to say something about that, the fact that he regretted leaving, but
I was going so that 3 week mark that came up, was that the first opportunity you got home to your dad?
It was 4 months. Yeah, it was 4 months, Dave, and I came home on the Friday night. My dad picked me up from Leeds train station, and then we went for a pint with my friends in my local pub. He stopped for a couple of beers, and then the plan was I was going to go and work with him in his business. So I did have an incentive to leave, if you like, because the Marines is tough. My dad's company was doing really well, and I had an opportunity there to join him in that endeavour. Unfortunately and sadly, on the Monday morning of that weekend, he set off for work and dropped dead at the wheel.
No.
So, and then my mother reappeared on the scene. I didn't see her, but she wanted the house, and she got that. She sold the house. She was with another guy, and they took everything. So I ended up literally overnight, jobless and homeless, and pretty much
So you've gone from grammar school, nice house, secure family, nice job, no money. Doesn't it show how things can change overnight? And anyone, anytime. Absolutely. How the hell do you dig yourself out of that?
Yeah, it was a difficult time. You don't realize until you reflect back, and writing the book gave me a lot of time to reflect. Lockdown was good for some things, and one of them was being able to do all that and put it down on paper. But yeah, it was tough the next couple of weeks, few months. It was my friends that got me through it.
If you hadn't have come out of the Marines then, would you not have seen him before he died? Would you not have had the opportunity? So you talk about regret. You talk about regret, but imagine the regret if you hadn't have had that pint with him in the pub.
You had that last pint. You had that last pint, and your dad knew that you were going to help him out with the company and things like that. That's everything, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
And you didn't do so badly since. So let's go back to so then you're in about as low as you could possibly get. What happened there? What did you decide to do? Did you try to get back into the Marines straight away?
I did, yeah, Harry. I mean, I'd got nowhere else to go, really. My friends were great. Even the local pub, I knew them incredibly well. They were doing my washing and ironing for me. Everybody pulled together. I had some good people around me. But I had to find something else, and so I reapplied to go back in, but I was going to have to wait 6 months. So I decided not to do that, and then I went traveling. I think I had 750 quid, and myself and my best friend from school, who was my best man at my wedding, we packed up, got on one of the Freddie Laker planes.
Oh my God!
You remember those?
Yeah, very much so.
And we ended up in South Carolina via New York and stayed there for 4 months.
Wow!
I had a friend who lived out there.
Right.
So, yeah, it was an eye opener in America. Again, a massive culture shock. 18 years old in America, it was great. But we had to come back. Visas expired, and then I realised I needed to do something. And I tried to join up again. Big waiting list for the Marines. No guarantees of getting back in, so I joined the Army.
And so you joined the Army, but didn't you feel? Because I know there's a lot of. Did you feel that you were joining a blue, and God forbid if they actually found out that you were in the Marines and then came out and your colleagues were like, "Oh, you thought you're something you weren't," sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Or did the Army generally they still think they're better than the Marines?
Yeah, but everybody knows that's not true. Even though I did 5 years in the Army, I've got to be honest. I mean, the grounding I got in the Marines, I'd done most of the field craft, the weapons training. Yeah. My fitness levels were pretty good. So when I went into the Army, I found it fairly easy because I wasn't starting from scratch like everybody else was around me. So it was great, really. And I really thoroughly enjoyed the training. But yeah, I got ribbed by the training staff quite a lot. I had to be good at everything. Otherwise, it was about the Marines being really crap,
Yeah.
So I had to exceed and, excel in certain things like firearms and things. And I ended up as a Bisley shot, which as a firearms man, you might know. So I was a marksman in the Army. So I went to Bisley to shoot in competition. I was a decent shot until my eyesight went. Which happens.
Then you need a shotgun instead, really. Yeah. Your eyesight goes.
It took 5 years in the Army, and 3 of those years were spent in Ireland, in Belfast and in Londonderry.
Oh, blimey.
Now, there was a time, wasn't there? There was a time in Northern Ireland. Go on, Dave.
No, I was just going to say, what was that like? I mean, I've spoken to, obviously, we work with lots of ex-Army and stuff in the job, don't we? And I remember lots of them have been all around the world. And funnily enough, I was talking to someone the other day, and they said one of the toughest and most bizarre places to work was Northern Ireland, because it's like being at home, but it's a very, very, very different world. And some people love you, and others want to kill you.
Yeah. In Belfast, I think everybody hated you pretty much. Right. In Derry,
it's consistent.
It was split in Derry because of the geography. But in Belfast, I did 4-month tour there. The conditions were horrific. You know, as a soldier, horrific. We had a hotbed system. So you would literally go on stag or go out on patrol. You'd do 3-4 hours, then you'd come back, you'd have 2 hours sleep, and you'd get in the bed somebody else had just got out of to go on patrol. So they called it a hotbed system because the bed was always hot. It was like Hessian blankets, 6 people to a tiny little room. It was just dreadful. Dreadful. And you got 4 months. I had 1 day off in 4 months.
Jeez.
So it was shocking conditions.
Blimey.
But everybody hated you. So it was consistent.
So 5 years in the army, what did the army teach you in those 5 years? What were the key things that came out of that?
I think self-confidence more than anything. I didn't have any confidence whatsoever going into the military, going into the Marines. And it does build your self-esteem, your self-confidence. You realise you can do certain things and you can excel at certain things. So you find out pretty quick where your strengths and your weaknesses are and what you need to work on. And I think it gives you more clarity and more focus and direction. And the discipline that goes with that that's the enabler, if you like. You know, that discipline I had, drove me forward to actually do things that were quite challenging. So I was always looking for the next thing to do. I never stayed in one place very long, and I got bored very, very quickly, which is a problem. It's still a problem. I do get bored really quickly. So I've never really done a job more than a couple of years.
This is it. I always found, and I found every 3 years or so, and it was similar with you by 100 counts. I didn't necessarily, until I got to the armed response, every 3 years I needed to move station. I went from a rural station to a city, or then I got promoted, or then I was taking, and then I was in ARVs after 3 years. I want to be a farms tactics advisor, and then an operational farms commander. I need to do VIP, something else to completely, because you get there and you're looking around, you're going, yeah, I'm really good with this, but happy with this, I'm confident, but something else there, isn't there? But there was a time, wasn't there, when you were sitting with another guy called Dave. They're real problems, they are, and sort of made you had a bit of an epiphany, didn't it? Really, that one?
Yeah, we were in it's Ebrington Barracks, which I think now is a housing estate. It's right next to the river on the water side, which is opposite the bog side. So water side was Catholic, water side was Protestant, bog side was Catholic. Right. So we were sat in the bar at Ebrington Barracks, and Dave was a corporal, I was just a private. And Dave had done about 8-9 years, and he turned to me and he went, "We're just a couple of losers and we need to accept it. We'll never, ever amount to anything in life. And this is us. This is our future." Wow. And I looked at him and I thought, that might be your future, mate, but it's definitely not going to be mine. And it was one of those moments. It was an epiphany. It was like the lights just came on and I thought, something's got to change here. I'm settling for something when I know that there's a lot more out there. There's a lot more to come. And I knew I had something inside of me that could drive me there, but I wasn't clear what, and it was meeting my future wife, girlfriend, when I was on holiday. That actually gave me that clarity because it forced me to make a decision. And that decision was to join the police.
Right. So often as well, it's a good woman is the one that puts everyone on the straight and narrow. I've seen so many guys going down, really getting involved with the law. I'd be nicking them every 5 minutes and then you wouldn't see them for, well, then, they've got a girl who's just, well, you either pack it all in or I'm leaving. But there was something, right, we want to get into the police stuff, but there was something that happened. You went to America and you had a good friend there and your life was going spiraling down at this point, wasn't it? Certain things with drugs and side of things, but you were careful enough to keep away from heroin, that side of things. But things developed on the other side, and that was another sort of warning for you, wasn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so anti-drugs, I think, and which any sensible person would be. But I saw it, writ large and graphically in America, in that my friend who was out there, who was a really talented hairdresser, really well paid, personality the size of a house. Everybody loved him. But myself and my best friend, Ray, we sort of went out there. We all lived together. We got a trailer, bought a car, these trailer parks. We lived in one of those. And we bought a car together. And we did everything pretty much together. But two of my friend Bob's friends, also hairdressers, they were all into the drug scene. I didn't meet anybody, truthfully, that wasn't on some kind of substance when I was out there. And it was middle-class white America. And they've been taking certain drugs this night. They set off in their car, we set off in our car. And we were going to a nightclub about 10, 11 o'clock at night. And we set off first, got to the club, wait 20 minutes, no sign of Greg and Johnny Ray, they were called. No sign of them. Wait another 20 minutes, no sign. It was before cell phones, so we couldn't make contact. So we decided to get back in the car and go back and look for them, and came across them. They were in a ditch in a car. Police were in attendance. Johnny Ray had broken his back and lost the use of his legs. Greg had broken his jaw, his arm, his leg. He was a really good-looking guy, and he'd got lacerations all over his face from going through the windscreen. And they both ended up in hospital in a really bad way. So we visited every day, but that was the thing that brought it home to me. And that was the day that, since then, honestly, never, ever looked at taking a drug.
Yeah.
Really, really stringently opposed to it. And from reading the book, I've run numerous drugs operations. So I find it really gratifying to sort of deal with these individuals that do exploit other people's weakness.
Yeah. And okay, so you decide, actually, out of the blue, you think you're gonna give the police a go at this point.
Yeah. And as you know, I'd been in trouble with the police. I did have a conviction for drunk and disorderly when my dad had died. I sort of went off the rails a little bit. But it was nothing heavy, it just happened to be, we were in Lake Windermere. And because it's party town, the police are not heavy-handed, but they certainly take a dim view and they act swiftly and decisively because it's one of those kind of places. So you don't get a second chance, and probably didn't deserve one, to be fair to them. But so I'd got a drunk and disorderly conviction. So I applied for the police because I looked at what my options were as a former soldier, and they were very, very limited.
Are you sort of 24, 25 now, are you?
I was 25, it was 1985, Dave, and so I was 25 years old. So I applied for West Yorkshire Police because that was my home force. You probably tell from the accent. And so I applied for that because my wife was my girlfriend at the time, but we were serious. And I knew we'd probably end up getting married. But so I applied for West Yorkshire. Went through all the selection, was lucky enough to get through. I sort of met the chief inspector, who I'll never forget. His name was Challoner. And he told me on the side that I'd got through. And the only thing that was left was the home visit. And because I was in Ireland and there was no home, two RUC guys, a sergeant and a constable, came to see me. And they said, don't worry, it's just a formality. And they went through a tick list in a A4 binder. And he said, of course, no previous convictions. And I went, well, no, I've got a conviction for drunk and disorderly. And he just shut the book and he stood up and he said, well, that's that. And I said, what do you mean that's that? He said, you can't get in. We don't take people with previous convictions. And that was it. They just left. And that was it. My career, my future had just gone up in smoke. So I rang Chief Inspector Challoner immediately and back at West Yorkshire. And he was really kind, really sympathetic. And he went, don't worry about it, son. There are people in this force that got a lot worse. And so I got in. How the hell I got in? But I got in.
Wow.
And hopefully I repaid his kindness.
So you got into West Yorkshire, your home force. Did you stay there? Did you move on? How did your career? And how long were you in for?
Well, I was in West Yorkshire. I did 27 years in the police. My military pension carried over, so I was able to retire a bit earlier. So I was fortunate. Actually, it was 26, not 27 years. But yeah, so West Yorkshire, I did my probation. I did try to transfer, but they wouldn't entertain it as a probationer. And I was engaged at the time. We were definitely going to get married. So my wife, Jenny, she came up and lived in Yorkshire. We bought a house. And I just got on as a CID aide after 2.5 years. And that had always been my goal, to be a detective. That was the be all and end all for me. If I'd have finished as a detective, that was me at that point in time. And I'd got an aide. And then Nottinghamshire wrote to me and said, would I reapply?
Oh, wow.
Put this in the bin and my wife will never know, or I can tell her about it and hope that they don't take me. So I did tell her, well, obviously I told her about it and I moved, but they messed me around from start to finish on the transfer. I had a house to sell. My wife had a notice to give, a job and a notice to take a job. And I rang them up at the 11th hour and I spoke to the recruiting sergeant and I said, look, I really need to know. My wife needs to know to give notice. And he went, my advice to you, son, is tell your wife not to give notice. So I took that as the fact that I hadn't got in.
Yeah.
It's true. 4 days later, a letter arrived on the doorstep. Congratulations, you've been accepted for Nottinghamshire. So yeah, that was my introduction to Nottinghamshire.
Right.
So we moved,
was this one Nottinghamshire or was this one your next one?
Dishforth. We were the last course to pass out of Dishforth in 1985.
Which one are you?
I'm there at
I was
the
trying
back.
to work it out.
Back left. That's me.
All right.
Ah.
I was the class leader.
Oh, crikey.
Oh, were you? There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
There was no one else. It was a very short list.
Did you do your career, the rest of your career in Nottinghamshire then? Because that would have been,
Yes.
there were some challenging years.
Yeah, and I was in the city as a superintendent when it was Shottingham.
Yeah.
Gun crime capital of the UK.
Highest
Yeah,
gun
it
crime
was
in the
hard
UK.
time.
Yeah. I remember that title that you got.
So you thought, I'm going to have to start all over again. Now, for everyone who doesn't know what a CRD aide is, you have to have proven yourself to have been something slightly special, that you're potentially future for CID department. And it means that you can then go along in the department and have quite a long period of time, isn't it? Is it 6 months or something? It could be, or something like that. And then hopefully you'll have gone through the course and you'll go straight on to the department if you're lucky, if it works out like that. But, so you moved. So considering you haven't got A levels, you haven't got a degree. Now, normally with the ranks, you would tend to have that. So how did you get from PC, start again from scratch, didn't you? And then get momentum again? Yeah,
I mean, a long story short, I went to probably the worst part of Nottinghamshire to start as a PC on the beat, and it was on the beat in those days, a place called Bestwood, which had an unenviable reputation, and it had organised crime family there. In fact, they had several. And they became notorious nationally later on with some contract killings, but we'll probably come to that. But yeah, it was a tough introduction. My inspector took a shine to me.
You did have a tough paper round.
Yeah. So my inspector did the usual annual round robin of who's taking their exams. Well, in those days, for me, everybody took their exams because you could go and sit the exam for 3 hours. You got a day off work and you could go to the pub and be in the pub for 12 o'clock. And you're smiling because you know it's true. So I said, yeah, I'm going to take it, Gaffer. I'll take my exams with no intention on studying or doing anything. Well, roll forward 3 weeks. And in those days, the duties projecting forward, showing the shift pattern and who's doing what, were on the table and they were paper. And one of the guys on my new shift said, what's this? Acting 2031, which was my number. And I went, what do you mean? He said, you're acting sergeant in 3 weeks' time. And I went, that's news to me. My inspector decided, having spoke to the superintendent, that I was going to be acting because I was not only going to do my exams, but I was going to pass them. So he got complete confidence in me that I was going to pass. There was no one else qualified to the rank of sergeant, so there was no one else could do it. Wow. So he gave it me. Yeah, so the problem was there were a few people there that really didn't want me to be successful. And they were sort of undermining me at every juncture, but that's part of the learning process. That's part of your personal growth.
Because they were basically, I think, and we've all found this as well, some people are quite intimidated by people who are quite motivated, saying, come on, let's go and let's do it, because they sort of show, some are just lazy, basically. They come to work to do as little as they can so they can go home. But then, if you want to have a good, fun life, you want to get a result that shift, and you fully failed if you haven't. You want to get out there, do some stop checks. Oh, there's a contentious term. Get some drink drivers or whatever if you're on airways traffic, and then get disqual drivers and look for burglars and that sort of thing. And I think you were unsettling the apple cart, weren't you? Especially as you were quite new in.
I was new in, and I was getting amongst the criminality of Bestwood. It was like shooting fish in a barrel, It was that kind of place. You could walk out of the nick and have as many collars as you wanted in a week. There were 2 or 3 of us that were really busy, and there were some other people that didn't do much at all. And it was exposing some people, I think.
Yeah.
Everything was different going down there, even the 10 code, the radio code.
Yeah,
For those that don't know, it was different from West Yorkshire there was no national code system. So I had to relearn everything. The papers system was different because the forms were different. So it was like learning again, but I learned fairly quickly. I had to survive. And so having been put forward for my acting sergeant, I had to really knuckle down and study hard.
Backfired on you, that one.
It did, but it gave me that push, that momentum that I probably needed.
Yeah.
So I passed my exams and I did pretty well. I came in the top 100 in the country. So I then got recommended to go on the accelerated promotion thing, which people who are degree people that apply externally can go directly through, or serving officers that are in can apply for if they're, they've got a certain amount of potential or it's recognised by their senior officers. So I got put forward for that. And there are 3 stages to it, for those that don't know. And I got through the first 2. The good news is they have to say that you are ready for immediate promotion. So I knew I had a stamp to say I was going to be a sergeant.
Right.
So I'd already got that in the bag, regardless of the outcome of stage 3. But in the 3rd stage, I didn't get through. I got interviewed by a Labour peer called Lady Mayhew. And she talked about cats for 15 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
To this day, I have no idea what that conversation was about.
Wow.
I really didn't get that level of understanding because I didn't get through. So, it was disappointing, but at least it had given me a glimpse into that other world where,
But it also gives you a glimpse into some of the underhandedness of people because you've rubbed them up the wrong way because you're showing them off a little bit, showing them up. And there was one guy I know there was you talk about. It was like you thought you'd get on well with him because he was CID. He's in uniform. He's being promoted to your voice, so you thought you'd get on. You already knew that he had a preconceived idea about you, and the things such as you knew because you'd been rubber stamped as ready for promotion. Yet there was you failed a couple of things, and you knew you were more qualified. You'd been better. It's that sort of politics behind which was so upsetting, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even going on my CID aid in Nottinghamshire, somebody tried to pull the rug from underneath. It was actually my own shift sergeant who tried to pull the rug, of course, because nobody knew me in CID. And it's thankfully for me, I'd arrested a guy who admitted to me and a CID guy 73 burglaries, and I'd nicked him on premises, and we ended up in a bit of a fight in the back garden. So it was a really, really good job that turned out really well. And the DI came to see me when I applied for an aid and said, I've got to be honest with you, I have no idea who you are. So I went and grabbed the workbook and I showed him all the work I'd done, crime-related work, including this Rice Park burglar who'd admitted, and he had no clue that was me. And then I found out the day after I'd been accepted. So the work I'd done spoke volumes to him, and credit to him that he had the open-mindedness to come and actually see me, because a lot of
you
people
suspect
me off.
Dave. I mean, Nick suspected that it was in the days where your face fitted. That was fine. It was the mates get promoted. That's it. And so Nick would be like, "Oh, we'll give it a go. It'll be a good experience anyway." And so he turns up and being this interview, and this guy was really quite dismissive about it because he knew who was going to get the job. Because he'd probably heard some negative stuff about you, Nick, because you're coming in here.
Yeah, definitely.
You're big, and so there are people like that. I know people like that. There was the guy who got me in the firearms unit who really didn't have a very good impression of me, and he then said to me, "You changed my mind in that selection," and and I'm forever grateful. Dan Ivey, who's
got to see what they're about. Got to give someone a chance. And by the sound of it, you were a thief taker. Did that ever set any challenges? You mentioned at the beginning when you said you got one of the hardest areas in Nottinghamshire that you were dealing with, some very influential crime families. Did that ever cause you any bother?
No, I'll be honest with you, Dave. My approach to dealing with people has always been the same. I treat people with respect.
Yeah.
I treat people how I expect them to treat me, and it doesn't matter whether they're a criminal or otherwise. And I've always tried to have that rapport with them, even when I'm dealing with them on the street or dealing with them in custody. And it tended to work. They're more likely to talk and cooperate. They're very much less likely to be violent towards you or make threats for future violence, which did happen a lot. There was a lot of intimidation. So I dealt with people, I think, appropriately, and that paid me back, I think. you know, and running forward 10 years, these guys had accelerated up the career path of criminality to a massive scale. And I was able then to still deal with them because we had that understanding. You know, they knew who I was and what I was about, and I knew what they were about, and they remembered how they'd been dealt with. So we did have that understanding and that relationship. Yeah, they weren't kind people, they weren't good people, and they'd done some horrific things. But you've got to deal with people, and you've got to deal with them in a productive way.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
No, Dave, I told you we'd need 2 hours for this because there's so much. But before we go on, I want to ask you about the case involving Abby Humphreys that people will recognise, probably be reminded of if they Google Abby Humphreys. But how did you get involved with that yourself?
I was in the city as a detective sergeant. I was running the robbery squad. We'd been plagued with street robberies. It become basically a pandemic in those days of Nottingham, and it was spreading. So that was my day job, and I've been there about 6-8 months, and we were getting on top of the problem. And I got a call out of the blue. Can you get down to West Bridgeford Station? You've got to be there in 20 minutes. There's a meeting. Can't tell you what it's about. So I jumped in the car, went down to Bridgeford. It was only a 10-minute drive from the city centre. It's where Trent Bridge cricket ground is and the Forest ground and all that. So that's where the station is. And there were cars parked everywhere on the pavements and the streets around. So I knew it was a big deal. So I went in and they were having the briefing was there. Everybody who's a who's who of crime and investigation was there. All the big hitters, all the faces you've never seen before, but you've heard the names of, you know, all the big hitters. So I knew something was kicking off, and it was big. And then Harry Shepherd, who was the detective superintendent, the senior investigating officer, came in and told us what had happened. And I think she was 3 days old. Baby had been stolen from the Queen's Medical Centre. A mother had gone to the bathroom. The father, Roger, had got the newborn, and a girl dressed as a nurse had come in and said she needed to take her to Weir and to do some medical checks, and he handed the baby over, and the baby hadn't been seen again. And she'd been taken, and that lasted 3 weeks, the search to find her. And I was the action allocator within Holmes, the Home Office Large Murder Inquiry System. So my job was to prioritise the day-to-day actions that we gave all the cops on the ground and reprioritise constantly, and to fire all the actions out to the appropriate person for them to go out and do, hopefully, the job that would find baby Abby. It clearly took longer than anybody expected. You know the stats of babies going missing or infants going missing, and if they're not found within a certain period, there is a strong, significant chance that they're going to be deceased. But the longer it went on, the grimmer it got. We got the TV filming us on a day-to-day basis, filming a documentary. And the director, I got to know him really, really well, the director and the producer. And he said it'll either be a good news story for Notts or it'll be a horror story for Notts. Let's hope it's the former. We got to know the family really, really closely. They came most days into the inquiry to see the inquiry team, and we got to know them as friends. And there is a real weight of responsibility on your shoulders when you deal with something like that, and you're living and breathing it day in, day out. Hardly saw my own daughter, who was only 3.5 at the time. Crikey, I mean, I was doing 18-hour days. 2 days I did 24-hour shifts on the days where we thought we were going out to find him. Because for whatever reason, Harry, the SIO, had allocated me to go and recover the baby as and when we had a strong lead to find her. And we'd had a couple of false starts. So it was a great time, exciting time, but the burden of responsibility was massive.
Yeah.
And so that finalized with you picking the baby up, didn't it?
Yeah, I was in the bar.
There was a documentary team, like you mentioned. There was a documentary team, and it was there with you. And you went. Tell us when you went into that house, because you'd already gone into a house and she wasn't there. You expected it was a false lead. It was someone with mental health who was saying, but and it was a lesson for investigators. Can you read, just as a favour for me? We're going to run this on slightly. There was a lesson for investigators who are a little bit too dismissive when they're told to do an action for a crime. A lesson for everyone out there. Any chance you could say what that was?
Yeah, one of the actions and was obviously we have trace, interview and eliminate certain people, TIE. And on this action was very, very simple, that any mothers or expectant mothers or recently birthed mothers, anyone that we saw, they have to have a red book. In those days, I don't know if they still do, they have a red book.
Yeah, they do. Well,
given by the midwife, and it has all the details of the child, the things they have to do and not do, the medical record for the baby. And they had to see the woman in person. They had to see the red book and examine it and see the child. And the action was allocated out. They went to a house. They saw all birthday cards, welcome to your new baby on the thing. They thought, well, this can't be it. You know, everybody was behaving completely normally. The granddad was there. The dad was there saying, yeah, we've had a beautiful, beautiful girl. He expected a disabled son. That's what he'd been told he was expecting, but I've got a beautiful baby girl. So the guys who went there were taken aback. They said, we need to see her. Oh, she's been sick. She's unwell in bed. She's asleep. You can't see her. They accepted that. They didn't check the baby and they didn't check the red book. So they came away, signed off the action as completed, and it was filed as completed. So it was Brendan Drive in Wollerton in Nottingham. So when we went round, we did all the checks and we found that definitely something wasn't right. So we checked with the midwife who said, no, this definitely isn't right. She's not expecting yet. She's still got another 4 months to go. So there's no way she's got a baby. So we knew we were fairly safe that we were onto something. So I went in with for support. They secured the premises. I went upstairs. The baby was in a cot next to the bed. The woman who'd taken the baby was in the bed. She didn't even question why we were there. So I knew we were fairly safe. But I've got certain things to look for that nobody knew about, which was a birthmark. So I lifted Abby out of the cot, checked to make sure the birthmark was there. She got a shock of blonde hair, as per the description. So I knew we were 100% as could be. And so I lifted her out, wrapped her up in the shawl that her mum and dad had given me, and carried her out down the street with the film crew following us down. We were filming us going down.
Incredible.
How fresh-faced I am there.
And they asked you a question, didn't they? They asked you how you're feeling.
Yeah, the interviewer said to me, you know, how you're feeling. And I was looking at the baby, as you can see, and I was reading, and I said, I'm choked. And I couldn't speak because I got a tear in my eye. And I was sort of looking at the baby, thinking about my own daughter, Olivia. And, you know, it just crystallized in that moment how sort of precious these babies are, the children are. And it was just a fantastic, fantastic moment. And then I went to the Queen's Medical Centre and met the parents. The paediatrician checked the baby over while I was there, never left my sight. And then Roger and Karen, the parents, came in, and the emotion was just overwhelming.
Wow, I can't imagine.
I mean, just what a thing to be involved in. You know, we deal with so much negativity, so many grim things in our jobs, particularly as head of homicide. That was pretty grim. But what a moment this was. And then it was a party afterwards.
And because you were, so you went through the ranks, and each one is a book on its own. Again, all right, just get it. Just get it out there. It's on Amazon. It's called Comfort Zone. So, but one of the things, yes, because you pretty much had a guaranteed place, you'd earned your position, you'd got really good results, turning these really bad areas with good results by I love the way you explain it. That's why I wish I'd read your book at the beginning. You sort of have this sort of system of actually just methodically changing things around and getting improved results. So you're going to get these positions, but you couldn't. So they thought, oh, okay, I'll go for the murder team, head of murder squad, which basically you thought that's out of my comfort zone because I haven't dealt with a murder before.
Never dealt with one. Never even worked on one. Yeah, it was daunting, I've got to say, but comfort zone. And that's why it's called comfort zone. That's all I've done all my life, really, is just push myself out there and hope that I swim and don't sink. But I was in the city, and I was actually promised I'd passed my chief superintendent promotion board. I was guaranteed to be the next divisional commander for the city of Nottingham. Things were all going well at this particular time. We'd dealt with all the problems. I'd been there 2.5 years through the really tough times. Worked 38 of my rest days. You know, it all piled up, and we'd really cracked it. And we'd got a great relationship with our partners. And then things changed and somebody else had to get the job at the 11th hour and they were given it. And Steve Green, who was at the time, I found out through the back door, which made it worse. The divisional commander didn't know. I got a call one morning at 6:30. I was in the office, always in early. And somebody said, I was with a guy last night who says he's got your job. And I went, you're kidding me. Can't be right. So I went to see my boss and my boss picked the phone up to ring the chief. And the chief went, yeah, it's true. So he said, I'll ring Nick, tell him I'll ring him in 10 minutes. So Steve, the chief, rang me and he said, what do you want? I said, well, you know what I want, but I'm not going to get it. He said, what else do you want? And I knew there'd been a vacancy in homicide for the head of operations as a detective superintendent. And I thought, I need that in my CV. I can't kick my heels here working for somebody else. No. I know I'm going to get a divisional command at some point. So in the interim, I'll get some experience in homicide, which is what I did.
And there is a really interesting thing here because this relayed on to your retirement and the jobs you got in. This is why, just for people who are thinking we're just going to run this on for 10 minutes. So because you've got to get this. This is really, I say each one of those ranked structures were a story on their own. So get the book. How did you get into Oxford for that course? Very good value course by it turned out in the end, but you actually applied through the government for a scheme, didn't you? But you still had to pay half.
Yes, yeah, I was qualified chief super on a pass. The Home Office advertised for anybody within their remit, so it's probation, customs and excise, policing, prisons. Anybody could apply for the senior leadership program. So I applied, and don't know how, but I went down to London and managed to get on it. And with it came a checkbook and a personal mentor who was non-police. So I met the guy and we went through all the different stuff, the Belbin and Myers-Briggs stuff that tells you about your personality. I mean, I already knew it was a basket case, so there was nothing new there. But what it did show is that there was a sort of a leadership was one of the areas I needed to improve on. So I looked at what was available, or my mentor did, and he said, there's two programs here that are world-class. One is at Harvard in America, and the other one is at Oxford. And I looked at the prospectus and I said, Oxford, it's got to be Oxford. You know, what a cool place to go. You know, anything that's got Oxford on it, everybody understands that worldwide. And as I say, I looked at the prospectus and it looked mind-blowing. And I was the only cop on it. So there were about 36 people. I was the only cop. They were all chief executive officers, chief operating officers. Wow. I must have been the least paid by 200 grand easily. But wow, what a bunch of people and bunch of experiences and so I was at Oxford. It was expensive. It was 14,000 quid a week. And that was, you know,
but something they did as a warm-up was, little did you know how a squash ball, amongst other things, would help get the attention of a couple of those, along with something else later on in that course, wasn't it? That you were starting to shine in that course.
The very first thing they did, they put us all in a circle in a room. We'd all got chairs, and then they said, everybody stand up. They brought a squash ball in, threw it to one guy, and they said, right, go out of the room and throw the ball to somebody else before you leave. And when you come back in the room, you've got to, through a series of however you want to do it, through non-verbal communication, through talking to people, you've got to identify who's got the ball in that room. So there's 36 people in the room, one out of 36. So one person goes out, comes back in, they can't establish who it is. Another person goes out, comes back in, after 10 minutes, can't establish who it is. And then I was asked to leave.
All right.
I came back in, and this is absolutely true. Within 5 seconds, I pointed to somebody and said, they've got the ball. They held their hand up and they got the ball.
Wow.
And I genuinely did. Harry, I don't know why, how. It must have been something I picked up from somebody looking at, don't know what it was. Those intangibles that cops pick up on, you know, with behavior. But I knew who got it. And then all of it, people thought it was a fix. And for days afterwards in the bar, people would come over and say it was a plant. And I went, I promise you it wasn't a plant. And they genuinely thought it was a plant. And it was the only time it had ever been done. So I was told. So I was really chuffed with it. But of course, it flags you up. And people are then interested to perhaps talk to you. So I then got to talk to some really interesting people. And the course, as a consequence, Harry, as you know, I got offered 3 jobs.
What?
Crazy.
That's amazing. In the private sector, in
the private sector. I got off the head of health and safety for Shell by their chief executive officer. Honestly, and that was there. I got a job working for the Caribbean Bank because their managing director was there, and then the governor of the bank came to meet us at the end of the course and offered me a job, which I took. And another guy worked for Barrick Gold, and he was the vice president. And after that, I worked for him for 3 years.
Oh my God!
And Dave, I'm sorry, I'm like a school kid in a sweet shop here because I've read it and I know what I want to get in and things like this. So you have to forgive me, but you eventually left the police, the rank of chief superintendent. What a career! Turning loads of things around, loads of departments. You'd think he'd be exhausted and just want to have a bit of a break. Again, out your comfort zone. You really describe when you're in the airport and you're going to Barrick Gold and you're fish out of water. And you've noticed as well when you were trying to import people for jobs, SIOs, to investigate fraud within there. You found it tricky in certain areas to get police officers to just come out of that public service type area, wasn't it? Yeah. I'm going to throw this picture in here now. Can you explain this?
One of the mines, we had 4 mines in Tanzania. They were all gold mines. There were 3 of them were open pit, open cast, and you can see the benches, the steps. What happens is when we blast at the base of the mine to bring up all the gold and the rock that you process, they're just waiting for us to blast, because as soon as you blast, they come down in their hundreds, if not thousands, to steal the rock. And then,
so these are all trespassers, are they?
Yeah, all trespassers, all from the villages around. You provide industry like you've never seen. The town of Kahama near one of our mines went from 100 or so people to several thousand within weeks, because the mine provides, either legally or illegally.
Yeah.
And
unbelievable.
And it was a very violent place. That the month before I went out there and was headhunted for the job, 21 people were killed in a day.
Oh my goodness!
Shot by the police in the mines.
So you did a lot of flying to get from various places and you ended up in this horrible metal thing, sweat box. I think it was a hotbed again. It was a big pelican on your roof that you grew to hate. They're not pelicans, are they? What are they?
No, they're marabou storks.
Marabou sorts. You thought, what am I doing here? This is just ridiculous. If I could press a button to go back home, I would. But you said something interesting about that place later, didn't you, really? Can you remember?
Yeah, I was so far out of my comfort zone, I can't tell you. If I could have gone home instantly, I would have done. I hated it. It was just so alien. Everything was alien to me. And it was just so different, but like you say, 2 years later, I actually preferred being there to being in my penthouse back in Dar es Salaam.
That's strange.
I loved it on the mine sites. I loved it in the muck and bullets, with the guys. We'd have a braai because they were mostly South Africans, so they'd barbecue every night. And I just loved chatting to people. And we had loads of our own guys from Tanzania there. I had 1,200 staff within security. And tried to get to know as many as I could around the sites. So I spent most of my time traveling between sites in the end, because I preferred it to going back in Dar and going to restaurants and all the rest.
Here's a quick question for you, because I know we are well over time already, but you so much we haven't covered any of your life, I feel. So Harry and I always try and encourage, show the public that the policing is positive, and Harry's enjoyed his job and I really enjoy my job, and clearly you enjoyed yours. Having left and seen the other side, would you encourage people to stay in the job, or would you say to them, you've got so many transferable skills, don't get tied down to, getting tied down to 30 years in one job in the world that you now work in is insane, isn't it? Because these guys don't work 30 years for one employer. They're often, my family who work in the private sector, they change their jobs every 18 months.
Yeah.
So would you encourage people to go and see the rest of the world, or stick with the job? There you go. There's a trick question for you.
Well, I've got to declare my daughter's a sergeant in the police, so just been promoted sergeant, and she lives and breathes it, loves it. So I'm really, really proud of her. But I've told her it's about transferable skills, Dave. You're absolutely right. Get the grounding in policing, and then look at your options maybe in 5 or 6 years' time, because there's a big world out there. And I know how valuable a commodity we are with our skills in the real world. And I call it the real world because we are protected with the policing. You know, I look at ACPO, certainly from my recollection from 10 years ago, they're a protected species, and many of them will not survive in the environment that I worked in because it's a very different place to work. You know, and performance is everything. You don't deliver your history. You know, I know that. My son works for Tesla, the electric car company. When you're working and everything's delivering, it's golden. As soon as you stop performing, you're gone. History. And
pressure.
It's pressure, but the rewards are very, very good. You know, while you're performing, that's great, and it keeps people on the metal. You know, at Barrick, it was day to day, relentless. Because I worked 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off, and even when I was 3 weeks back in the UK, I was on my phone and my laptop every single day.
You did 7 days a week, wasn't it, or something? You were doing it.
But the rewards were there, Harry. I was getting extremely well paid. You know, and you know, they expect.
And it's very honest. You're very honest about that, and it was just that lovely that financial security for your family in the future and things like that. But you sort of worked your way up from a 16-year-old kid with no future, being chucked out of school, lost his parents, lost his chance to go to the Marines and whatever, and ended up as a director on a FTSE 100 company.
How did that happen? My friends.
How the hell did that happen? Gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. This will be available. It's on YouTube. It's on Facebook, Twitter. We always also remember we put it on Spotify and the Apple Sound and all those sorts of things. There's about 5 audios as well.
Sounds like there's a good stocking filler or stroke Christmas present for people out there. Get on Amazon. I'm going to go and get Nick's book. I'm not a massive reader.
The Comfort Zone.
Inspire me, Nick. Inspire me.
Nick Holmes' Comfort Zone. It is a massively inspirational book. The other thing you might want to do as well, if you're anywhere near Torbay, Dave and I will be 12th of March. This is getting quite exciting, this one. And we've got Fitz, who's Dave is the local radio host and whatever. Fitz, he's great, he's funny, whatever. He's going to be hosting us, so we're looking forward to that. So come and join us for that as well. We also do have some in April coming up in Leeds, Halifax, and potentially Hull, but we're not sure about that one yet. So there's 3 there in April, so we'll be around. Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for everything you've done. If you just hang on for a few seconds after we've gone, and then we can speak to you very quickly before you go. All right. Thank you, everyone. Been appreciated.